Tell me, Muse, of the rover, the man who wandered far and wide after he sacked the holy city of Troy. Many the men whose cities he saw and learned their minds, and many the disasters he suffered on the sea, trying to save his life and bring his comrades home. Tell us, goddess, daughter of Zeus, some of that story.
So begins one of the finest stories ever told, and one of the most famous. It is by the Greek poet Homer. Its name is the Odyssey, which means the story of Odysseus. Odysseus, the ancient Greek adventurer, liar, and hero. The time is 3,000 years ago. The place is the Mediterranean Sea, studded with rocky islands, cut by tricky currents and raked by sudden storms. The Mediterranean is a challenge to every daring sailor. Odysseus himself, daring and skillful as he was wrecked and lost his ship and all his crew.
After we left the sun god's island, when no land appeared in sight, but all was only sea and sky, then the King of Heaven put a gloomy cloud above our hollow ship. The sea grew dark below. We sailed on for a little while, but suddenly the west wind roared upon us in a hurricane. A raging gust snapped through the ropes holding the mast. They broke. The mast fell backwards. All the sails and rigging collapsed into the hold, smashing the steerman's scull. Then Zeus above thundered and struck the ship with lightning, that all her timbers shivered under the crash of the bolt, smoking with sulfur. Overboard the sailors fell. Like gulls, they were carried away by the waves around the ship.
For us, the sea is the sea, water and weather and clouds and the blue sky above. The land is the land, earth, trees, mountains, not for the ancient Greeks.
For the ancient Greeks, the whole of nature was populated by gods and spirits. Islands, cities, mountains, the sea, all had their guardian divinities. And above them all, the embodiment of all power and justice, was the king of gods and men, Father Zeus.
Shame upon all mankind! How they blame the gods! From us they say their troubles come, but they themselves, they suffer through their own willful folly and sin.
The Great War is over, the War of Troy. The kings of the Greek tribes besieged Troy for 10 long years. At last, by the trick of the wooden horse, they got inside the walls and captured the city, which now lies in ashes and ruins. Each with his little army and fleet, his loot and prisoners, they have set sail back to Greece. But few, very few of them returned safely. Listen to Nestor, oldest and wisest of the Greek kings, as as he talks with Prince Telemachus, the son of Odysseus.
My boy, well I recall the misery that we gallant Greeks endured so long in the land of Troy. There lies bold Ajax buried, there Achilles lies. And there my own dear son, Antilochus, the brave. For 9 long years, we struggled to destroy the Trojans with every stratagem. God made our victory hard. And when at last we captured Priam's lofty city and sailed away to be wrecked or storm-tossed on the voyage, why then, even then, God made our homecoming a horror.
Some of the Greek princes offended heaven by committing an outrage during the sack of Troy or on the voyage home. Others made the return journey only to find that, well, 10 years is a long time. While they were away, rivals had taken over their palaces and their power, and sometimes even their wives, and were waiting to kill them. So died the leader of them all, King Agamemnon. When Odysseus visited the world of the dead, he saw his former chief among the ghosts and heard him tell the story.
Noble son of Laertes, wise and cunning Odysseus, I did not die at sea fighting a fearful storm. I was not attacked on land in open fight. No. Aegisthus planned and carried out my death, helped by my devilish wife. Inviting me to his home, he gave me dinner and killed me like an ox killed at the stall. There was a wretched death. All around me, my comrades were cut relentlessly down like pigs slaughtered for meat. You have witnessed the violent deaths of many men. Some killed in duels, some in the rough melee. But there was a sight which would have gripped your heart, to see us there beside the wine bowl and the feast, lying felled to the ground, the floor seething with blood. Oh, with what anguish then I heard Cassandra screaming. That traitress Clytemnestra cut her down, clinging to me, while I lay dying on the ground, clutching the blade that killed me. Meanwhile, that she-wolf turned her back, and though my soul was leaving my body, she would not stretch a hand to close my mouth and eyes.
The cleverest of the Greek heroes was Odysseus. He needed all his wit and wiliness, for he had both these dangers to face: rivals taking over his home and the anger of a god.
Odysseus had angered Poseidon, god of the sea. So his fleet was destroyed in a storm. Later, his own crew offended the god of the sun by eating his sacred cattle. So they and the ship were sunk, while Odysseus was cast away on a remote island. And there he remained for 7 years, like one of the pathetic displaced persons left derelict at the end of the Second World War. Odysseus dropped out of sight. Meanwhile, his own kingdom, the island of Ithaca, and his own home were being taken over by rivals. These are the petty chiefs of Ithaca and the neighboring islands. They think Odysseus is dead, so they have moved into his house. Odysseus' only son, Telemachus, is still young, and he is all alone. What can he possibly do against them? Nothing but protest, an appeal to their sense of justice.
Listen to me, you men of Ithaca. Hear my words. Not since King Odysseus sailed away with his fleet have we held council here or summoned a public meeting. And now, who has called us together? What is his purpose? To tell us news of some enemy force approaching? Or else to bring before us a matter of public concern?
Sir, it was I who called the people together here. I have no news of invasion, no matter of public concern. But I have a private worry, the troubles of my home. First, I have lost my father, the noble King Odysseus, who ruled among you here as kindly as a father. And then there is something worse, which means complete destruction for me, my home and family, property and life. My mother is besieged by suitors against her will. These are the young sons of the noblemen hereabouts. All day, every day, they haunt my father's palace and slaughter our herds of cattle and sheep and fat goats to feast on at their banquets and drink our sparkling wine in reckless riot. So our property goes to waste. We have no champion like Odysseus to protect us, and I cannot possibly resist them. I'm weak and always will be, not a fighting man. Yet I would surely turn against them had I strength. Such conduct is an outrage. It's a disgrace to see how my property is ruined. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should have more respect for the judgment of your neighbors watching this, and you should fear the wrath of the gods that never tolerate sin but bring on retribution. In the name of Zeus in heaven, in the name of justice, stop, my friends, stop and leave me alone with my grief.
Telemachus, your speech is proud, and your temper is violent. How dare you try to throw blame and disgrace on us? Not we, the suitors. We are not responsible. It is your mother dear, that most resourceful lady. Now it is 3 long years, and fast approaching 4, since she's been tormenting our very heart and soul, in part by giving hope and promises to us all, and sending messages which are all hypocrisy, partly too by a strange and complicated trick.
Good young men, my suitors, since my husband is dead, do not hurry me into marriage. Let me finish the weaving of this shroud first. It is a burial garment for my husband's father, and I should be ashamed if he, rich as he is, were buried without a shroud.
These were her words, and we generous hearts believed her. Then she began and wove the garment every day, and every night she sat by torchlight and unwove it. And so for 3 long years she cheated all her suitors. But when the 4th year came and time was rolling on, one of the women in the house betrayed the secret, and we detected her unraveling her work, so that she had to finish it, much against her will. Now here is your reply from the suitors. Mark it well, remember it, and let all the other Achaeans know it. Send your mother out of the house. Tell her to marry any man she likes, and whom her father approves. For we shall go on eating you out of house and home as long as she continues in her present purpose. And we shall never go to our homes or anywhere else until she chooses a man, whoever she likes, and marries.
Antinous, I cannot drive her out of the house. She gave me birth. She brought me up. Odysseus is far away, whether alive or dead.
But heavy compensation must be paid to her father should I send her back. Yes, and my own father will punish me also. So will the gods when my mother calls down upon me bitter curses of hate leaving her home. And all my fellow citizens will be indignant. No, I shall never tell her to go. But you, if you have any sense of shame among you, leave my house at once. Look elsewhere for your dinner. Visit each other in turn and eat what belongs to you. Yet if you think it is a nobler thing and better to waste the substance of a single defenseless man, then go on, ruin me. I pray the immortal gods that Zeus in time may send retribution upon you, that you may perish here in my house unavenged.
With this, the story of the Odyssey has started. Or rather, the stories. It has a magnificently complicated plot, the Odyssey. Homer tells not one tale, but 3 interlocking tales. First, how Odysseus escaped from the lonely island and made his way home, and, against tremendous odds, recaptured his kingdom. Second, the story of his young son, Telemachus, growing up and becoming a man. And third, a long, long flashback, the tale of Odysseus' adventures in his years of wandering, between the capture of Troy and his being marooned on the distant island. How skillfully Homer seizes your interest at once. He doesn't begin at the beginning. You get that through the flashback. He doesn't begin in the middle. He begins very near the end and moves right into the heart of the action, only a few days away from the final crisis. When he launches the story, the 3 main characters are far separated from each other.
Hey, Telemachus!
Telemachus, as we have seen, is at home, but alone and friendless in his father's house, taken over by the tough suitors and the faithless servants. As for Odysseus, he is 1,000 miles away on the remote island. He has been living with a beautiful nymph of the island, Calypso. She has offered to make him immortal if he will stay there as her husband. This would appeal to many a younger and shallower man, like being shipwrecked on Balahai and living there forever. But for Odysseus, it is not like real life. For him, real life means a home, a family, responsibilities, a place in the world. Without real life, Odysseus feels as though he were already dead. The problem is too difficult. Not even the cleverest man in the world can solve it without the help of the gods. And a god does help. The 3rd main character, Athena, remembers Odysseus and puts his case before the council of the gods.
My heart is torn with grief because of wise Odysseus, unhappy man, far from his friends, lonely and sad, away on an island lost in the center of the sea. He yearns with all his heart to die, and yet you pay him no attention, Father. Did he not please you by doing sacrifice beside the ships in the plain of Troy? So why should you now hate him, Zeus?
My child, how could I ever forget the gallant Odysseus? It is Poseidon who harbors relentless anger against him for his son, the Cyclops, whom he blinded. But come, let us consider, one and all, a plan to bring Odysseus back. Now, Hermes, carry this message to beautiful Calypso. Odysseus must and shall go home. He will sail alone for 20 days at sea, in danger, on a raft, till he arrives at the rich island of the Phaeacians. They will honor him highly and give him splendid presents and take him in a ship to his beloved home.
From this point, the 3 main characters begin to move towards one another. Athena leaves heaven. Disguised as a human being, a sea captain, she visits Telemachus and starts him on his quest. Odysseus, helped by Calypso, makes a sailing raft, and off he starts across the sea. Still pursued by the stormy anger of Poseidon, he lands on the island of the Phaeacians. And now comes the long flashback through the past 10 years. Homer brings it in so easily that it seems quite natural, although it's a triumph of the storyteller's skill.
Odysseus is being entertained at a banquet by the king of the Phaeacians. Clearly a noble stranger, he has not told his name. A blind minstrel has just sung a song telling of the last days of the Trojan War, the adventure of the wooden horse, of which Odysseus was the leader. Now, at last, reminded by the minstrel's song of all that he has been through, Odysseus reveals his true identity.
I am Odysseus, son of King Laertes, famed on earth beneath, in heaven above, for cunning. My home is Ithaca, standing out in the sea and marked by one tall mountain forest-clad. All round are many other islands lying close together, further east and closer to the mainland. But Ithaca sits low on the horizon westwards. She is a hard, rough place, but a good mother of men. Nowhere in the world is any place sweeter than home.
And now, in a splendid long narrative, Odysseus tells of his exploits since the fall of Troy. How he heard the bewitching song of the sirens, but escaped. How he was captured by the cannibal giant, Polyphemus, but made him drunk and blinded him and got out of his cave by a trick. How he outfaced the sorceress Circe, who had changed his men into animals and made her undo her magic. And how he ventured to the frontiers of the land of the dead and spoke with ghosts.
In themselves, these are fine stories, but within the whole poem, their purpose is to make us realize how daring and resourceful Odysseus is. Not only brave, but endlessly inventive. Yes, and lucky. So, they prepare us to accept the astonishing ingenuity and gallantry which he is to show against all but impossible odds in the final battle with the suitors. After hearing his story, the Phaeacians put him on board ship and take him to Ithaca, his home. He is still alone and unknown to everyone, but he is no longer a penniless vagabond, for his hosts, the Phaeacians, gave him rich gifts of honor. Safely home is Odysseus, but he is not safe at home. What would happen if he simply walked straight to the door of his house and ordered the suitors out? There are over 100 of them. They would simply pick a quarrel with him and surround him and finish him off. It's easy to be bold and rush into the thick of things and start fighting and get killed and be a dead hero. It's more difficult, but it's far better tactics to be clever. And that is what Odysseus does. Instead of going straight to his house, he goes far out into the country where his pigs are kept, a miserable, lonely place, but secure. And there he learns from his servants what has been going on, and at last he meets his son, Telemachus.
Now, son, give me a list of the suitors. Count them over. I want to know how many and how strong they are. And lay out in my mind a full plan of campaign to see if you and I together can attack them without assistance, or will need others to help.
Father, I have heard you praised for strength and wisdom, but what you say is far too bold. 2 men alone could never fight so many warriors. There are far more than 20. Well, listen to the count. 52 in all come from Dulichium, all young and strong, all chosen men with 6 retainers. From Sami, 24, and 20 from Zacynthus. From Ithaca itself come 12 men of the best. While we have only 4 servants beside ourselves. If we stand up inside the house against so many, then you may pay in blood and tears for your revenge. No, Father, what we need is allies. Think of some.
Allies? We have Athena. We have Father Zeus.
Excellent allies, yes, but they are in heaven.
No. When they hear the war cry, they will be beside us when you and I attack the suitors in our palace.